Italy has provided a wonderful shelter for me and my dog.
We didn't doubt we should come here. We do concerts in the same place where we live. Their language for the first time was like therapy.
Ukraine. Putin.
No one really cares about us with our war.
I realized that I did not want to give birth to my child in such conditions. It's better in Zhytomyr under the bombs. Home, of course.
On February 24, I woke up, as we all did, because someone called and said the war has begun. Somebody probably woke up because of the explosions. I was just told, wake up, the war has started. I said, what war? I had a panic attack. I never had that before. I was panicking. I was crying, I was laughing. It was crazy.
I woke up because I heard explosions in Kyiv. We live in the suburbs of the city, on the side of Hostomel and Bucha. The walls of the house were shaken. I woke up my husband and said, the war has started, what to do? It all started for me back on February 20th. I knew something was about to happen. I packed everything, prepared all the documents, and we were ready to leave. When this Hitler declared war on February 21st, I took the baby and we went. We went to Kyiv. But when I saw that no one was going anywhere, everyone was calm and nothing was going on, I decided to go back home. I decided that I needed to figure out what to do next, and then I would go.
What made me leave? My panic attack. I realized that I couldn't take it, and that I had a pretty weak nervous system, and that I needed to be in a calmer place.
Why did we come to Italy? My friend lives here and I used to work with Italians. It's an organization for human rights and tolerance. They offered us to come and said they would help us with accommodation and finances for the first time when we arrived.
I had no other options. When I was leaving, I headed here because I was told by the volunteers that there was a pet-friendly hotel to go to.
We lived in the village Borsheva, 14 kilometers north of Kharkiv in the direction of the Russian border. In the morning of February 24th, our village was already occupied. There were military-heavy equipment and explosions. After 6 a.m., we couldn't go to Kharkiv anymore. There was a battle going on at the circuit road. Friends called me warning against going there because there were destroyed armored vehicles. We had no plans to go to Russia. The first 12 days we stayed inside and didn't leave the house. We thought if we didn't go anywhere, nobody would notice us, and then everything would go back to normal. In mid-April, when we were shelled 3 times, the roof was hit and the windows were broken. Those were cluster projectiles which don't leave big holes. There was a hole 50 centimeters in diameter in the roof and shrapnel in different directions. We left through Russia. It was the only option. They asked us, "Where are you going?" We answered, "To my relatives." "How long are you planning to stay?" We replied, "We'll rest a bit and go back." They were surprised. "Are you going back?" We said yes. In fact, we were very afraid that we would not be able to leave Russia. We went to Latvia and it was relatively easy to leave. A lot of people were leaving.
The situation was dire. There were constant sirens. The children's mental state was affected. When we came here, the children started peeing in the bed, both the older and the younger one. The younger one still has this problem. The older one doesn't anymore.
Does the child need care?
Yeah, he has disability. He cannot take care of himself. He doesn't drink or eat. He doesn't go to the toilet by himself, only with my help.
We left, but we left 2 hours early. At 4:27, we heard the first explosions. We got in our pajamas in the car and drove for 23 hours without stopping. We got to Yaremcha. We stayed overnight with people we didn't know. It took us 3 more days to get to Italy.
In Uzhhorod, they gave us a list of the countries where we could go. The most important thing for me that the country was a NATO member and that it was in the European Union. Italy was on the list, and I had no doubt that we should go here. When we got on the bus and started driving, the volunteer who lives here, but she is from Western Ukraine, kept telling us, there is a bus waiting for you and Italian volunteers, they are already waiting for you at that border. We just needed to get there, and when we all got on the bus, such impressions were, we were touched because I'm going to cry at those memories.
Why Italy? I used to live here. I have lived in Italy for 10 years. Then I decided that changes had to be made in my country and I needed to go back home. 6 years ago, I came back to Ukraine. Life was going well. We earned good money, lived well, planned the future. But in one moment, everything changed.
We got to Italy in a very strange way. To be honest, I didn't plan to go to Italy because I had no one to go to. I didn't know anyone here.
Italy was wonderful hosting me and my dog. When we entered Italy, it was the only country that offered dog food right away. We drove for half of Europe, never got stopped, and here the Carabinieri stopped us, told us to take right, so that we had a dog, fed and watered the dog, gave us a free pass on the paved roads. That was the decisive factor for us. We realized we could stay here with the dog. This is Eva. It's a German Shepherd. There are 3 of us living in this room. Me, my husband and daughter, or rather the 4 of us and Eva. This first trip has accustomed her to crowded spaces. When we rode in the car, it was cramped. But here she's free to lie down and stretch out her paws and tail.
When I was in Poland, I wrote on Facebook that I was sad to live without animals, that animals are living beings we domesticated. And now, in work conditions, we can't take care of them because we are dependent on circumstances. If we want to live together with animals, but we don't have enough money to rent an apartment, then we have to ask people to shelter us. It's very difficult to find housing with animals. One person was very touched by my post, and she wrote, "Why don't you go to Italy? In Italy, all people love animals, and it's not a problem for them to shelter you in their home, even if you have 2 animals, a cat and a dog." All the volunteers who wanted to help us were surprised by such an offer that I was able to find a place in Milan, a free housing for 6 months, and it's still possible to live with the animals. In Italy, all the wishes were realized.
There was a seminary in Bergamo that was hosting the first refugees at that time. They hosted refugees in a dormitory. They welcomed us very well. We lived there for 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Then they accommodated us in Italian families who had volunteered to host refugees.
2.5 months passed after we told people we had an apartment, which we had prepared for future guests. We prepared an apartment with furniture to house 3 to 4 people. When they arrived, we welcomed them warmly. It was Valentina, her daughter Sofia, and Misha, Sofia's son. They adapted fairly quickly to life in the small community, even though they came from a large Ukrainian city.
When we arrived, we didn't know how or where we could eat, where to go from our room. Volunteers came right away at 8 a.m., knocked at our door and started to solve all these issues. They called interpreters, told us where to go, asked us what we needed, everything we needed, shampoos, whatever we needed for the kids, diapers and so on. When we were on the road, they put everything we needed in the car. They gave us absolutely everything and then kept coming to us until we adapt. We were invited here by Tommaso and Nadia. They organize events in Milan. They've already remade one such factory into an art platform. I've visited their festival, it's a very beautiful place. At first, they had the idea to buy factories. This one and another one a bit further, it's a huge area. They wanted to buy all these factories and use them for installations, fashion, yoga festivals, and so on. Then they had the idea to accommodate 2 more Ukrainian women with children in these houses, so that the women would be together when the workers were working. But then, by the voice of the heart, they decided to accommodate as many people here as possible in these office buildings. They turned these office spaces into residential units. They did it very quickly, in 10 days. They just made a post on their Facebook page for people who wanted to find them. There are 30 women and children living here, though some of them have already returned to Ukraine. I can show you my room. My son is not at home now, so you can film everything. I brought a microphone from Kiev. We were given a TV set so we could watch Italian programs. We had 3 beds, but then we asked for a bunk bed to save more space. My child was given a drum kit because he plays drums. It's here now. He doesn't play because he broke his leg.
When we arrived, we were very well met. We were immediately given the address where we had to go. It was a separate floor in a 3-story house. Each floor is a separate apartment. The owner of the apartment was living in a house nearby. When they met us, the refrigerator was full of food. There were a lot of toys for children. They brought us a lot of clothes. The first month was great. The organization also helped us financially.
We were told that we could stay here for half a year. We came in early May, and in October we would have to be moved, or we would have to find our own place, because this hotel is not equipped for winter.
My friend who lives in Italy called the municipality where she lives and was told that they have an apartment, and if it's a pregnant woman with 2 children, it will be a separate apartment. Come. We were accommodated by an organization that is considered to be the police here. We came to this town, which was 350 kilometers away. We packed everything and left. It turned out to be Caritas for refugees, a kind of hostel. There were a lot of cockroaches, horrible smell, double-decker beds. I realized that I did not want to give birth to my baby in such conditions. It was better to go home under the bombs than here with cockroaches and stench.
It's impossible not to be excited about this terrace. It's beautiful. We used to have flowers here. Everything was in bloom, and now all the flowers downstairs because the sun is scorching on the terrace. But you can do yoga here early in the morning, which I do. And you can sit here late at night. If you look at this space from here, this is the space where we've done about 4 or 5 concerts for Italians. The most recent concert was for 500 seats. It was a charity concert. Italians paid some money for the concert. We sang Ukrainian music and some Italian music to please our friends. The idea is that we do concerts where we live. People come to see how we live here, and there is a concert. It's interesting, in my opinion. We have professional musicians performing with us. We have a pianist. I'm a vocalist. And our children all sang and played musical instruments.
We went to local Ukrainian church. They found us an Italian family who took us into their home in a separate room. For nearly a month, I had to stay in a hospital. We were able to move in only after I gave birth to a baby. But it didn't work out. This family also had 2 little children. The kids played together, everything was fine, but after 5 days in the first week of our stay, some unclear accusations began. They went on and on. And at the end of our second week of our stay there, it became clear that she was jealous of her husband. At the same time, she was saying that I was talking to my husband all the time. She was acting weird, and we realized that we had to leave. As for the accommodation, on average, my expenses are about 150 euros per week, taking into account the fact that I travel by car and not by public transport.
We choose the first and second course for lunch and for dinner. For the first course, we have a vegetable soup and vegetable pasta. For the second course, fish, meat, or cheese. I buy inexpensive products, like yogurts for breakfast, because they only give us pastries for breakfast. Fruits are cheap here. I bought peaches for 170 euros per kilo. I couldn't find strawberries cheaper than 5 euros, though. Yogurts are probably at the same price as in Ukraine.
We buy to the best of our ability. We buy yogurts. Traditions of Italian cuisine. In the morning, they give pastries, coffee, tea at self-service. Lunch is traditionally the first meal, pasta or some vegetables, or soup of choice. The second course, meat or fish with vegetables. There are also seasonal fruits, watermelons, apples. The dinner is more or less the same. The first couple of days it seemed unusual. We like it. As for the prices, you try not to compare the prices in Ukraine with the prices here. Of course, our products are cheaper. We would not buy these prices in Ukraine, but there are no other prices here. We buy inexpensive products. We spend as little as possible on food, 50 euros a week at most.
The food is delicious and the menu is versatile. At the beginning, we didn't know the language and didn't understand the menu. It was such an adaptation moment. What they cooked for us, that's what we ate. Mostly they cooked pasta for us. But if we ask, they can make a soup for kids. They do their best to be nice to us. It was very difficult for us without soup. Platosha is a specific child and he has his own menu. I immediately appreciated and compared. A lot of people said that it's an expensive country. Yes, it can be expensive. But if you compare the prices in the supermarket, they are just a little bit more expensive than in Ukraine. 100, 200 euros. This is what I get from Ukraine. We spend them. Given that we do not need to buy and cook food, well, only for Platon.
As for food, I don't have any problems. I have lived here for 10 years. I know the Italian cuisine. We cook everything half Italian. I often cook borscht and stuffed cabbage rolls for Italians. They like it very much, especially borscht. I even cooked meat jelly. I don't really like their food, their attitude to work. But when you look at them, you understand that maybe there is some sense in it. I have been a guest a couple of times. At first, they served pasta, and then as a second meal, we were served potatoes and meat. The food is very dry and you have to drink water the whole time. Of course, the food is very tasty, but if we take into account all the canons of good nutrition and our idea of food, we have a traditional dish of borscht. Our dishes are juicier, if you can call it that. When I was in hospital, I wrote to my friend from Chernihiv, sent her a photo of food. Remember how they fed us in the 5th maternity hospital? It was very tasty there.
One of the problems is the cuisine. For me personally, it is not tasty. In Ukraine, as if there is no salt, they practically do not use salt. And the vegetables that Ukrainians use for cooking, I personally do not like, but my wife does, not me.
As for prices in our region where we live, this is Lombardy. Here prices are higher than in any other region of Italy. It is better not to compare prices in Italy with prices in Ukraine. The euro ranges from 34 to 37 and sometimes even up to 40. Here, for example, I have bought bread for 300 grams of bread. I paid 1.42 euro, which is just 3 little pain, as they say in Italy. Now we are in a local store. For 3 beetroot, you have to pay 1.50 euros, and for such a pack of carrots, 1.90 euros. As for the prices of pasta, you can buy any size and type of pasta. Prices up to 1 euro. Prices for cheese are almost the same as in Ukraine. Mascarpone is 3 euro. Here is so-called economy version of cheese for 1.65 euro. The price of chicken fillet, which is already discounted, is 3 euros for 200 grams. Each weekend in the village comes store on wheels, where you can buy anything from fruit to vegetables. The prices are slightly higher than in a usual store. The price includes delivery to the village in the mountains.
Very yummy.
My goodness.
Thank you.
What surprises us most when we talk about Parmesan, Grana Padano cheese? Sophia and Valentina laugh because they say they can't eat Parmesan. The only cheese they like is the one they spread on bread. For us, this is completely incomprehensible. The Grana Padano and Parmigiana Reggiana cheeses are some of the best in Italy, and to them, they don't taste good. How is that possible? They're shocked when we put Parmigiana Reggiana cheese in borscht. They say that borscht should be served with mayonnaise.
Most treat us like ordinary tourists. I didn't see any special interest in us. No one asks for our stories. No one here is particularly interested in us with our stories and our war. Sometimes our hotel owner turns on the news about the war in Ukraine, about Zelensky. They hear news about the war all the time, but it's very far from them. Italy has always been like that. Italians treat tourists that way. They sit down at the table in a cafe and they immediately charge you 1.5 to 2 euros for sitting down. Plus, they bring you a bottle of water, which you may not need because there is drinking water in the taps. And there are many drinking fountains around the city, and for that they will charge you 2 euros. They will bring you some bread and you will be charged another 2-4 euros for that. And you haven't even started eating yet. That's Italy, and that's the way it is. I do not really understand it, but that's how they live and that's how they feel comfortable. Italians love to make money on tourists, and they also try to make money on refugees, but they probably don't quite understand who Ukrainian refugees are and that you can't make money on them. The air conditioner is offered to us for 15 euros a night, and it's not expensive. I asked in another hotel, their air conditioner cost 20 euros.
Italians have always perceived Ukrainians as people who come to work. They think we are poor because there are so many of our people here. Now they have changed their attitude to Ukrainians. If before they used to say Ukraina, now they pronounce Ukraina correctly. They know exactly where our country is on the map. They are interested in our culture now. At school, I have seen many Italian children who walk with Ukrainian-Italian phrase books. They started to learn Ukrainian because it is interesting to them.
I know a little bit of Ukrainian history. After the October Revolution, what happened after that, what happened under Stalin, and then what happened under Putin, with the annexation of parts of Georgia and then Crimea, and the war in Donbass. As for the other traditions, we don't have much knowledge to understand what Ukrainian culture is all about. There is one point that surprises me a lot, that Ukrainians know only bad Italian singers, Toto Cutugno, Adriano Celentano. We do not consider this to be good Italian music. For us, quality Italian music is Nina, Paolo Conte, De Gregori, De Andrea, who do not even exist for Ukrainians.
Yes, they are nice people. I feel comfortable here. I can't say that I communicate with them all the time, but what I see, hear, observe, at first, their language healed me. These songs revived life in me. We came here under a lot of stress. At the beginning, there were often fireworks, and the first time it happened, the waiter came up to us and said, "The administrator asked me to inform you that there will be fireworks, so you don't get scared and think it's explosions or something." I said, "Thank you." Then we even began to enjoy it, but it was hard at first. A man from the rehabilitation center came and asked Vladik, "Do you want to go to the sea?" He answered, "Yes, of course." We filled out the papers, and our family and the neighbor who came with us, who also has a daughter on disability, were taken to the sea. And near the sea, there are pine trees, air. We had a very good rest. We were distracted from everyday life in the hotel. When you're constantly in a hotel and all the time around strangers, you don't feel at home. And at the seaside, we had a feeling of home. We lived in a separate house, we all lived together and cooked there. There was a kitchen. I missed cooking.
The people we communicated with were comfortable and normal. A mixture of English and Italian is enough for now. We didn't go to any official institutions. We didn't have to. The people we briefly interacted with were all very friendly and sometimes even adorable in their attitudes. Once on the beach, an elderly senora heard that we were from Ukraine. Ukraine! Putin. The Italians are wonderful people. When you recreate with them, when you come to dinner or for lunch, they are very friendly and nice. But when it comes to life and bureaucracy, it's a nightmare. When I was pregnant the first time, I really wanted to give birth in Italy. I don't know why I had such a dream. It was expensive and seemed impossible. Now I understand that it was quite a strange dream, and it's good that it didn't come true then. The same goes for living in Italy. I never wanted to immigrate from Ukraine, and now I don't want to anymore, having lived here. I realized that Ukraine is much more comfortable and native. You understand people, you know what to expect from them. Here you look at their behavior, and very often you don't understand how a person can say, think, or do such things. To chill with them is cool. But as for life and some documents, everyone in the world knows about Italian bureaucracy, but knowing and experiencing it are completely different things.
I don't know if you can say it on the camera. If you compare our countries at the moment, at first it seemed to me that Ukrainians are more educated, more cultured. Each country has its own customs, and even the moment when people crossing the road in Ukraine, it's normal to let the pedestrian go first. And here we had an impression that no one wanted to let us cross the road. I was not sure if they even saw us. So there are some peculiarities, not terrible. You just compare it with your home country. This is my first time abroad in such a country. I'm not super excited. I feel at home. I'm not crazy happy about being here. I understand that our country has made huge progress since we became independent, and you can feel it. Life is good in Ukraine. The only drawback now is the war. We have a very good country. There's nothing that I strongly dislike that would make me go home. I think the country is very expensive. It costs unreal money to rent a place to live here. A friend of mine had a free certificate from Airbnb. These certificates were free for Ukrainians. If I'm not mistaken, the amount was 1,400–1,500 euros. And she was able to rent an apartment for 5 weeks, thanks to this certificate. Permesso is a residence permit, which gives you the right to live here for a year, to work, receive various public services, because you have a fiscal code, which guarantees your rights on an equal basis with other Italians. The legal status means that you can stay here for a year, you can work and have health insurance. That's the most basic thing. Food and hotel accommodation are provided by the government free of charge. We went to the commissariat to prepare the documents. Volunteers helped with the paperwork. They drove us in their cars and helped us because they know the language. They talked about everything and helped us in every way. Yes, we already got the residence permit, and now we are waiting for the plastic card.
I have lived in Italy for 10 years. I got a document called Permesso di Soggiorno Illimitato. It's a permanent document for the whole period. These documents had allowed me to work officially. Knowing the language and knowing everything, I'm already here as a half local. My daughter was born here. Of course, it is easier for me in terms of this. It is difficult for our refugees who don't understand the language. They take courses trying to learn the language. And only after a month, we were able to apply for Permesso. More than a month later, we applied, but we still didn't get the documents because they lost my fingerprints. They called me at the end of May and told me to come right away, and I was just in the hospital 2 days prior birth. I told them I was in labor. They told me, come after you give birth and we'll do documents for the baby as well, but it all takes time. After 3 months, we haven't received a Permesso. A lot of people expect to work. It's hard for me to imagine how we can work with our lineup. Maybe we'll be able to work part-time on a one-time basis. In fact, we really believe that once we get that status, we'll have a place to come back to, and we will be able to return to Kharkiv.
There were job offers, and though we don't have an official status, we were offered unofficial work. 2 offers. The first was cleaning hotel rooms, 6 euros per hour, and the second offer was pouring beer at the beer festival, 7 euros per hour. One of our girls went to work pouring beer. She earned 50 euros per day for 7 hours of work where you could not even sit down. It was hard physical work. Maybe someone is used to this kind of work, but we white-collar workers are very spoiled. You can learn to work from them. They work from morning till night. And it's not just my opinion, but this is what many Ukrainians say who work, for example, in our hotel. I saw a boy from Kiev who works here. He says, they are so enthusiastic. They enjoy it. They work very hard. You get up in the morning, they're already at work. And in the evening you go to bed, they are still at work. They live for work. I guess that's their lifestyle. They have everybody working, grandmothers, grandfathers. The owner of the hotel can work as a waiter, and it's normal.
Caritas offered me, let's apply for refugee documents. You will receive money from the state as a refugee. But I have the opportunity to work. I have documents that allow me to do all this. I said no, because there are so many refugees who need it more, and I have the opportunity to earn money, and I said, find me a job.
If you want to work, you can always find a job. The main thing is your will. There are many opportunities here. If you want to work, there are jobs. Yes, it's hard. If a person was a businessman in Ukraine, it's clear that you have to start from zero here. And if you have a profession as a cook, you'll still work as a handyman at the beginning. You can choose. If you're a driver, you can also work as a driver. You have to look for it. salary from 6-7 euros. There are different jobs. You can find a job for 12 euros per hour, but you have to look for it. It's not in our small town. You need to go to Naples or Milan, for example. Because my child is disabled, I receive financial assistance from Ukraine. Thank God there is such help. Our country also thinks about us and such children.
It's very good that Valentina was able to find a permanent job here in Calabria. Starting next month, she will work every day. This will help her adapt. Sophia is still looking for a job. It's easier for Misha. He goes to school. He goes to summer camp. He socializes naturally there with his classmates.
When we came to Italy, for the first months everything was perfect, but then everything went wrong. We arrived, and in just a few days, the children were registered for school and kindergarten. In 3 days, my son already went to school and my daughter went to kindergarten in 5 days. It was necessary to translate the documents on vaccinations. Everything was going very well. When I was picking up my kids from school the first days, I cried because kids were very friendly. A boy from school came running up to us and said, "Dima is my friend," in Italian. Children ran out, hugged him, gave a lot of drawings, gifts. The teachers supported him. He told me that when they had a reading lesson, one teacher read a text and another teacher wrote the text in a translator, and there was a translation on the screen for Dima. Dima goes to after-school group for free. We were told that it is free for us. He really liked the school. He made friends. We made friends with some of them on Instagram. We keep in touch with the moms. We weren't very lucky with the kindergarten. We had a bad situation, and we hardly ever went to kindergarten. Do you like living in Italy? Not really. Why? Because here sometimes there are happy moments and sometimes there are problems. For example, today we went to the police in Navarra. We got a letter saying that my mother's fingerprints were lost. We arrived. We waited for 2 hours. They told us the system didn't work, and then we waited another hour, and again the system didn't work. So we left. We were told to come again tomorrow. We enrolled our daughter, who is 8 years old, in school. All these months she went to school here. Then in June, summer camp started. We got her into that camp. She is there now, but she doesn't want to learn Italian. She says, "Mom, I don't need this language because we are going back home."
In September, I'll storm the school. I don't know if Platon will be taken to this school because he can't be there alone. If I'm allowed to be there, I'll take him to school. And if not, we'll just look for some classes. They didn't tell us anything, but we found out on our own. A little bird told us that there's a clinic where Ukrainians are treated free of charge. Before that, we asked the owner of the hotel. He told us to go to the general line at the clinic, and then we can make an appointment with the doctor in about 3 months. And then we found out that there is an ambulatory, a doctor, a schedule. On even numbers, he works in the evening. On uneven numbers, in the morning. There is a live line. It's a family doctor who gives referrals to other doctors if necessary. You can make an appointment to see a gynecologist, make an ultrasound. There is a free clinic that accepts our Ukrainians. I have not yet visited, but those who have been there, they're satisfied. That's a huge plus. Medications are expensive for the most part. They prescribed medicine for me at a discount of 50%. I bought them for 2 euros, and they cost more than 5 euros. And I bought some ointment for 6 euros. If in Ukraine I can choose a cheaper analog, here I have no choice. I show the prescription and they give me the medicine. I bought medication for cats. It was sold in a regular drugstore and they cost me 45 euros.
The owner of the house where we lived immediately took me to the district hospital. They examined me, said that the child was fine, and scheduled the next visit. Everything was free, everyone was very friendly and trying to help. When we were evicted, and I heard that there are many cases like this, when you get sick and then you're in hospital, the tenants evict you from the house. In Spain, there was such a case with my friend. I do not know what the logic is, but it happens so often. For us Ukrainians, it is strange when a person is in hospital, pregnant, and you kick him out on the street. In Ukraine, no one would do so. Here I was in the hospital, I felt bad at night, it was getting worse. I had to do something. I woke up the landlady and asked her to call the ambulance, because I didn't know how to do it properly. And what would I say without knowing the language? They took me to the hospital, and the next day I got a message that I had 8 days to live. This is a weird situation. What was bad in the hospital, they take a very long time to register documents. You feel bad, you get to the hospital by ambulance. For 4 hours I could not sit, lie down, I was very sick, I had no energy, and they were registering papers. And they say, please wait, please wait. This was all happening in the middle of the night, when I was alone. A group of doctors and nurses, everyone is busy, and I was alone. The paperwork took 4 hours, and only after that they put me on a dropper and put me in a ward. That is, I didn't have a place to lie down. You walk along the corridors, sit on chairs and wait. This was a strange situation, but afterwards I was treated very well.
We had to take a course of treatment with homeopathy, German medicines. I made a list, and the Italians bought and brought us these medicines. I was giving him the medicine for a month, and his state has been more or less normalized.
They are very scrupulous. They take tests every 3 hours. In terms of this, everything is fine. But if I compare giving birth in Ukraine and Italy, I like it better in Ukraine. But when I said to my friends that giving birth in Ukraine is better than in Italy, they replied, well, you're comparing to Kiev. Yes, I'm comparing to Kiev. I'm comparing to a good public maternity hospital in Kiev. We have a warmer attitude. Here, everyone is kind of polite, but they take your baby away from you. For example, I gave birth and I didn't see the baby for 2.5 hours. I didn't know how she looked. When I gave birth in Kiev, they put the baby on me, and because of the hormones, I felt complete happiness for 2 hours. We cuddle. It's a joy. But here there was no such thing. The baby was taken away. They examined the baby for 2 hours, and whatever I asked for, they didn't care. I asked to bring me the baby, and they told me, wait a minute. I didn't like it. And another difference, they keep the baby in the hospital and discharge the mother. I was shocked when the day after the birth, not even 3 days had passed. They came to me and said, we are discharging you. I said, and the baby? And the baby stays here. I could not understand this. We don't have such a thing in Ukraine. The mother leaves the maternity hospital with the child. If they have the slightest suspicion that the child has some kind of illness, they immediately take the child to intensive care, taking baby away from mother, and it turns out that in the first week I rarely saw my child. Only every 3 hours I went to feed.
Italians don't know English. My English is above average. That was enough for me to speak to people when I traveled. Here is a small town. No one knows English. If you go to the restaurant, it's okay, but if you ask in English in a store, no one will understand you. They want Italian. They do not understand even elementary words in English. For example, how to say cat or bag. They don't understand anything. They must have learned something else at school.
We learn a little, but we learn on our own. I think this is not the best way to learn. There is a translator app on the phone. Have you looked for courses? I haven't yet. In our hotel, we have not seen such ads. We like Italian as a language. And it is useful to learn languages for an elderly brain to prevent the development of dementia.
It would be possible to learn on their own, but frankly, I do not have the resource for it. Psychologically, no resource. Google Translator is always with us.
The only difficulty is the language. It is easier for Misha. He has been attending school for a month. Children learn quickly and are not afraid to make mistakes. So he already speaks and can explain something in Italian. Sofia is also learning little by little, and because she is young, she is doing very well. The most difficult is Valentina. We think she understands everything when we talk, but refuses to say a couple of words in Italian. But we understand each other with the help of the online translator.
For those who will go here, I can say that it will be difficult. The difficulty is that here everything is different. For example, in terms of cuisine. Many Ukrainians say that the taste of the same cucumbers and tomatoes is different. It's difficult. And the second, this is of course the language. And I must say that the Italy I was in 10 years ago is very different from Italy today. Will you go home after the victory? Home, of course. Home. But how soon can we return? How soon will they demine? How soon will everything be rebuilt? I don't want to stay here because we'll be a prosperous country. The Italians will come to see what Ukraine will be like. And we will rebuild our country so much that even Italians will want to come to live with us. And I'm proud to be Ukrainian. I already want to go home. I don't know if I can wait for victory. We definitely don't plan to stay here. The only thing keeping me here all these months is the kids. It seems to me it's better for their mental state, but I'm not sure about that anymore. My husband says that children should not hear the sirens, but should the children wander the world and sleep where they can, not understanding why they get evicted, why they are treated like that? This is a very big question for me. At first, I thought it would be an interesting adventure for the children, where they would learn a foreign language useful to them and an imitation of normal life. But it turns out that we have no normal life here. We can't learn the language because there is no basic stability in life. You don't know where you'll sleep tomorrow. I'm here because of the kids. I wouldn't have left Ukraine, and I want to get back there as soon as possible. The place of your power is the sea because you are from Mariupol. How do you feel about what happened to your city?
It was very difficult to perceive what happened. I just watched on the internet how they were destroying my city. The house I grew up in, the school I went to. I cried a lot in the first months. When I come to the sea and go into the water, I feel much better. I feel very good.
Like in your childhood in Mariupol?
Yes, like in my childhood. The sea is a great happiness. It saves and calms me down.
The Italians are very worried about this. Of course, I can see that they are tired of everything. The family I live with is very positive. She is an incredible person. I've never met anyone like her. I met her 2 months ago, but it feels like we've known each other for a long time. I have a contract till November 1st here, and I'm hoping that I'll break it early and go home and everything will be over. She reassures me, calm down, you'll go home when the war is over in November. My birthday is at the end of November. They promised they'd come. They'll come to see me. She has been to Kiev once, and she says it's a very beautiful city, and she wants to come again with the children to Kiev. And I will be waiting.
We Italians live well. As for the situation in Ukraine, most people will quickly forget about it. Or Italians will get tired of immigrants, which don't only come from Ukraine. We have immigrants from Africa, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and this will also be a problem for Ukrainians.
We had a dream to live near the sea, and there was such a possibility. But all these dreams have collapsed. And maybe, for this reason, we can stay here longer.
The main piece of advice for Ukrainians in Italy and other European countries is go back home. Don't stay here. We are strangers here. At home, our fields, our rivers, our houses are waiting for us. Come back home. We will revive our country and live as Shevchenko said. That's it.
Ой, у лузі червона калина похилилася. Чому ж наша славна Україна зажурилася?